Hi guys, welcome to Let's Have a Seance. We are on episode 3. I'm Ruben.
I'm Chelsea.
I'm Fern.
And today we're going to be doing an episode on Skinwalker Ranch. Not a lot of people know about it. Some people do if you're into the paranormal shit, like kind of we are. Most of us are. But yeah, so let's just jump right into it. Skinwalker Ranch is a 480-acre area of land that is in the Uinta Basin in the northern area of Utah. It's known as the largest hotspot for paranormal activity in the world. The activities and stories said to have taken place here span over 50 years or so. We know of cattle mutilations, large unknown creatures, UFOs, Bigfoot sightings, poltergeists. This fucking place has it all, guys.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm skeptical. It's like...
It seems like a lot.
True. I mean, there was that monolith. They
Don't
found it in
come for me.
Utah. And you didn't like it.
Oh, yeah.
You said it's fake.
Well,
Fake news.
I don't know about the original one. The original one seems more believable, at least. The one in Romania, though, that one just looks like a shitty fucking...
Welded piece of junk.
Yeah.
My Theo did that one.
Some shitty welds that you burned holes in the sheeted metal. Like, because they even went up and, like, tapped on it, like, which was the dumbest thing to do. If you're trying to make people believe that it's a real, like, thing from aliens, don't knock on it and have it sounding like cheap-ass metal.
That sounds eerie. Don't knock on it.
Don't know.
Shirt idea.
Don't know. That's a horror movie if it isn't one already.
Don't knock.
Bet.
So during that time when early European settlers were crossing overseas, two indigenous tribe groups in the basin were in constant conflict over territory. The two groups were Navajo and the Utes. Navajo in particular were a bit more hostile than the Utes and have been noted to capture Utes for use as slaves. Sometimes around when these battles had taken place, the Navajo had decided to move into the Ute territory and curse the land in an effort to drive out the remaining groups. To put it short, while the ranch is the main source of activity, it seems that the surrounding basin is also affected, which is what I'm saying. The monolith and all that shit in Utah, man, that's cursed land, I'm telling you.
All right.
So, the oldest documented case that happened on the ranch dates back to 1906. The first settlers reported hearing explosive-like noises and rumblings coming from beneath the ground. Then that same year, the family reports of a lone traveler who stopped and asked for water. They recounted that the visitor stayed a bit to chat and began to tell them where not to dig, as if he had lived there before. It was kind of like he knew something would happen. They also noted that while the traveler was wearing normal clothing, normal for, that era and stuff, that underneath his clothing they could see he wore a blue one-piece outfit that seemed to glitter and dazzle. He was fancy and schmazzy. Once the traveler was done with his water, he left, but as he walked away, he disappeared.
Wasn't that convenient?
Yeah, that's how they usually do.
Yeah.
In 1930, the first cattle mutilation on the property was reported. 1944, the first globe-like object was reported in the area.
What is globe-like
Like an
object?
orb?
Like a
light orb?
like a sphere.
What if it was just like comets or something, and they just didn't know what?
Made
Comets
a
look
shooting
like?
star. In the coming years, more reports. In the coming years, more reports of UFO sightings began to emerge. There's a ridge near the ranch linked to Skinwalkers, nicknamed Werewolf Ridge. So around that area, Skinwalkers, sometimes they take the forms of werewolves, and well, they say they look like werewolves. Mm-hmm. And so around that area, people see a lot of wolves and shit.
Well, that's what
Convenient.
Isn't that the thing? Is like skinwalkers can only really take the form of like animals or like people,
Yeah.
But they have to have been able to imprint on those things.
Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy because, they call that ridge Werewolf Ridge. And so the next owners that, as we get into the story, a little bit deeper, they start seeing wolves. So it kind of all, it's like, wow, people already knew about it. Crazy. With the ranch experiencing a boom in UFO sightings, the original owners decided to sell the property to the Shermans in 1994.
They said, you can have this problem.
Yeah.
Give me the money. Peace.
I would have done the same. About 5 months after the Shermans had moved in, Tom Sherman was tending cattle with his son. When out in the field, they saw a wolf. It was a wolf, guys.
Convenient.
Yeah. Segway. Thing was, it wasn't just an ordinary wolf. Tom recalls the wolf being 3 times the size of a normal wolf.
Even 3 times the size of a normal one.
The wolf moved a bit closer to the pair, and that's when Tom realized that there was something off about the wolf. After a few moments of being in shock and awe about the size, the wolf turns to a nearby bull and begins biting and eating its face. Yeah. It was just like
Also terrifying.
going at it. They just moved there, so they didn't have many cattle to begin with. They realized that they might lose out on a lot of money, so he tried to save the bull by hitting and kicking the wolf, but it wouldn't let go. He then told his son to run inside and grab his rifle.
3 shots right now. Bam! Bam! Bam!
But yeah, they didn't phase the wolf. There was no blood or flesh that came off the animal. It was as if the bullets vanished upon impact. While it showed no reaction on the 3rd shot, it ceased its attack, walked a few paces away, and just stared at the family. That's when Tom asked his son to bring his .30-06. It's a bit more lethal than a standard rifle and used for big game hunting. Tom took 2 shots. The 2nd shot tore off a piece of the wolf's shoulder. The wolf ran. Tom and his son chased and tried to kill it, but the wolf vanished along with footprints. When coming back to the piece of the shoulder that came off, he found it was already rotted, as if it had been dead for quite some time. Shit's pretty crazy, guys.
That is.
Before I was gonna say, like, ghosts, you can't really interact with them physically, so maybe that was going on, but then he actually, like, shot off a piece of its shoulder, so obviously that's not the case. But I feel like it could have killed them if it wanted to. Seems like it's not actively trying to kill them.
Yeah,
And it's just, like, trying to see what they're gonna do.
Yeah. So after, like, some months after the first sighting, Miss Sherman was heading back home. Blocking her path to the ranch was a large wolf and a smaller animal that appeared to be canine, but its head was disproportionate to its body. The large wolf was so large compared to the car that it had to bow its head to look into the vehicle. So this bitch was huge.
Yeah.
That is fucking terrifying.
Miss Sherman was shaken up by the animals, but didn't move a muscle. Instead, she waited for them to leave. On other occasions, the family would spot the wolf around the land, but could never catch the animal. They reported the sightings to the tribal police, but were told that it was impossible because there hadn't been wolves in the area since 1929 after being hunted to extinction. So shortly after sightings of the wolf, the Sherman family started experiencing poltergeist activity in their home. They're just fucking getting everything over here.
Yeah.
As if these things couldn't get any worse, the family started witnessing UFO sightings, similar to those in Brazil in the 1970s, known as the Chupa Chupa phenomenon, or Operation Plate, if you want to Google that. Which we can talk about, and we can talk about it more in depth in another episode. I'm pretty down for that.
I've never heard of it, so I'm interested.
Well, to quickly summarize the incident in Brazil, many people claim seeing UFOs that look like small RVs with porcelain-like figures surrounded by lights. These crafts were reported to attack civilians almost daily. The incidents were documented by the government officials, indicating over 400 people were attacked, having their blood taken from them or sucked out of them, which gives the
Like
whole
Mars
chupa chupa.
attacks.
Mars attacks just
Yeah. They come down and say ack and get out.
But what's crazy is that 100 people died from this too.
Damn.
So back to the events surrounding the Sherman family. They too started seeing these UFOs resembling the craft seen in Brazil. In one story, Tom talks about his son and nephew chasing a vehicle that they thought was a van or an RV, and as they got closer, the craft slowly lifted and flew over his fence and trees, then took off at a high speed. In one instance that frightened Miss Sherman, she claims that she saw a craft so close to home that she could see inside of it. A dark, all-black humanoid figure sitting at a desk. It stood and walked out of the craft, and then it just stared at her. In another bizarre experience, the Shermans described seeing an orange vortex in the sky, creating different shapes and sizes. In the vortex, you could see another sky, or another dimension. On one occasion, while looking through the vortex with binoculars, Tom watched a huge triangle craft come out of the vortex and slowly make its way across his land, observing its surrounding areas, then taking off at a high speed. Around this time, the Shermans would see lights or orbs of different colors traveling through the land, sometimes so low that it appeared they were looking for something or
Sounds
anything.
like they're on some fucking LSD.
Yeah.
It could have been.
The sky opened up, and I saw another sky.
So one day when Tom just said, I've had enough. Shit has been real here. I just about had it. And he decided to send his dogs after one of these orbs that were in his field. They went on the hunt and they got far enough to where Tom could hear his dogs, but he couldn't see them. And that's when they went from barking to yelping in pain. Tom quickly ran to check on his dogs, and what he found were 3 piles of ashes. Ashes.
Atch Wednesday.
Sorry, I'm a little Hispanic. He found 3 piles of ashes. It was as if the dogs had just been disintegrated. That was
Laser.
freaking lasers. The final straw was when they had a visitor. The visitor was a city guy and went on about how he wanted to meditate on the land and be one with the earth. He was real, like, with his feng shui, his chi. And
aligned.
Yeah.
Still alive.
Tom was sort of thinking to himself, yeah, just wait till he sees something that'll spook him. Thinking it might be orbs or such. Time went on. Tom checked in to see what his visitor was doing. When out of the trees, a figure came out running. Quickly stopped when it noticed Tom could see it. Tom described it as a tall, bulky figure, shimmering and translucent.
Edward Cullen.
Cloak and dagger. It is Edward Cullen.
God damn it, Edward, stop.
He looked at it and was just like, I know what you are. He's like, say it. But no, it looked like a predator. Like, you know how when you see the outlines, but you can see through it?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Very
ruined
cool.
that.
Edward Cullen.
It's Edward Cullen.
Okay, that's way cooler than Predator.
The figure ran past Tom and straight towards the meditating visitor. It stopped right in front of him, letting out a roar that echoed throughout the land. It ran across the field and back into the woods. Shortly after, the Sherman would share their story to a magazine article under the alias of the Gormans. So, also, this is weird, but they started making shows about this place. It's on History Channel. There's a book, I believe, and then there's a movie. There's a couple movies and documentaries. But they always go as the Gormans because they didn't want their real names to be known. So now that I said it's the Shermans, oh shit, I'm so sorry, guys.
They go, see?
And so they didn't want any more scrutiny or anything, but still wanted to bring attention to something wrong with this basin. 3 months after publication, the story would reach a Las Vegas billionaire, also known as Rob Bigelow, who not only owned many properties in Las Vegas, but was also a huge UFO enthusiast. Bigelow created his own research team known as National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS for short, if you want to get all
Like a
technical.
disease.
NIDS? No, never mind.
I got the NIDS.
I got the NIDS.
Oh, poor Jimmy.
So NIDS was like in partnership with the government to capture evidence and assess any potential threats on the property. They purchased the property from Sherman's for $200,000.
A steal.
The team set up around the clock. I mean, shit. There's houses that go for $100,000 right now on my block. The team set up around the clock surveillance in hopes of capturing.
The team set up around the clock surveillance.
Yeah, basically. And so they were in hopes of capturing something and soon to discover that the president occupies the lands was much more intelligent than they thought. Researchers have reported that the land or beings at Skinwalker Ranch know when not to make an appearance, as though they are aware that they are being monitored. Despite this, a small number of pictures have been captured, but nothing too concrete. The public has been made to believe that no concrete evidence exists, but yet the research team studied the ranch for nearly a decade. Even after NIDS moved on, another government agency owned by Bigelow started conducting research there, so it makes you wonder if there isn't anything going on, what's making them stay, guys?
Unless it's like a big skimming operation for like the billionaire.
Yeah, to like a big
To launder
write-off
money.
thing, maybe. Or on the other hand, he could be like, you pay me to be a researcher on Skinwalker Ranch type deal.
Oh, what's crazy too is that I'll try to get into it a little bit later, but after he made his group 2 times and all that stuff, he ended up selling it to a place that pretends that well, it seems like they're pretending to be like a real estate agency. And when you look them up, nothing really comes up that they own anything. And so people are still doing research there. And now all of a sudden, Bigelow has, I believe, 1 or 2 satellites in the sky.
So he's really trying to get down to the bottom of it.
And the Shermans, they did sell the ranch to Bigelow. They ended up only moving 25 miles away from the ranch. Mr. Sherman was hired to help on the farm, tending to the livestock on the land. His experience with the strange phenomenons and the land were a plus for the team. Researchers and scientists have came forward stating that they witnessed firsthand paranormal activities at the ranch. And so it did start off slow, as it normally does. But around 1997, that's when things started to pick up. A majority of the incidents were cattle mutilations, and of all the mutilations, the one that baffled the team the most was a calf spread out on the ground. You can even find a picture of this. One leg was like yanked out of the socket, and all the internal organs were missing. But the crazy shit is that there was no blood on the ground or on the animal.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't. That's just fucking weird.
How you do that?
How you do that? The mother cow was nearby was visibly shaken, and upon inspection was missing an ear that had been tagged for identification. The ear wasn't bit or had any sign of struggle. It was precisely cut all the way to the skull with no blood visible. That dude was missing an ear. Poor cow.
Like all the way to the skull? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
As things seemed like they were escalating, researchers reported seeing orbs in the sky and tropical birds not native to Utah or the country for that matter.
What kind of fucking birds were these?
Jungle
Fucking
bird.
pterodactyls or some shit?
Jungle bird.
Fucking,
I pictured in my head, like they didn't post any pictures of it or they didn't describe them, but I pictured parrots.
Toucans.
No, tuki. But there was a sighting of a large bird that sat in the tree and would just stare at them. And I don't know about you, but that to me sounds like a fucking lechuza. But anyway, on another night, Sherman and the researchers were woken up by the guards barking. And they all jumped in the trucks. Oh, damn it.
Just got excited at the trucks. Huh?
Sorry,
I love
F-150.
tricks. Love tricks.
So when they jumped in the trucks with the spotlights to check out the area, and the team met up where they kept the cattle, one of the cows was separated from the rest of the herd. So the researchers took this as a sign that something might be wrong. There, above the cow in a nearby tree, were 2 red orbs that appeared to be eyes. With the light of the moon, they could see the silhouette of a dark humanoid figure sitting on the tree, just watching them.
Scary.
Mr. Sherman shot at the figure because he likes shooting at things. But before he could hit it, the figure jumped down and ran into the forest.
I like Mr. Sherman. He's like, kill him!
Yeah.
Shoot
Like
first,
ask questions later.
He should be from Texas. The researchers ran to inspect the tree, and there on the ground was a single footprint. There's actually a picture of a footprint.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you can find it. I mean, I have it, but you can find it. One researcher who was present compared that to a velociraptor. It was roughly 6 inches in diameter and 2 sharp claws protruding from the heel. Another sighting was when the whole team saw a massive reddish-brown animal walking in the field. The beast was said to resemble a hyena, but had the tail of a fox. Pretty as shit is how I imagine it.
Cutie.
So when the beast noticed that it was spotted, it snarled at them and ran into the nearby woods. Around this time, another sighting came from not a researcher, but a resident that lived in the nearby area. A couple was driving on the highway nearby Skinwalker Ranch when the woman sitting on the passenger side noticed a black humanoid figure running in the woods alongside the car. The figure turned its head to look at the woman. She stared in. Why did I read it like that?
And then she died.
The figure turned its head to look at the woman. She stared into it. its glowing red eyes, and then looked ahead and ran faster towards the ranch.
Glowing red eyes.
There's a period in time for 4 months to be exact that the researchers didn't experience anything but continued their research. Late one night, they were trying to see if they could catch anything on film. As it got later, the researchers grew tired and started packing up to head to bed. As they were nearly finished, someone spotted an orange vortex in the distance. The orange vortex came back. One of the researchers grabbed his binoculars to try to see what was inside the vortex. He then whispered to the other researchers, "It's a tunnel." The other researchers grabbed their scopes and binoculars, trying to catch a glimpse of the tunnel. They all witnessed a black humanoid face peeking out of the vortex, and what appeared to be, it was like soldier crawling out, grabbing the edges of the vortex to help itself out. It dropped down into the nearby field. They estimated the figure to be about 7 feet tall, bulky, and muscular. It looked at the team, then looked around and ran into the nearby forest as the vortex closed.
So these sound like they could be like wormholes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stories, they go on and on about what the researchers and the Shermans had encountered. Many others after them. Local residents have witnessed strange things from UFOs, orbs of light, dark beams that run alongside cars, and even one case of a UFO chasing a vehicle. There has been books published. One of them that I actually want is called The Hunt for the Skinwalker, and a documentary series on the History Channel. You can find some of these things like I know there's one on Amazon that I recently saw, and it's pretty good. There's a guy in there named George Knapp that maybe in other episodes we can get into. But he's pretty cool. He's all into this whole paranormal stuff. He tries to go and debunk things. There's also cases that he gets involved in, like called the Missing 411 cases. I don't know if y'all guys heard of that, but it's crazy. But yeah, so Skinwalker Ranch, guys.
Where's the gift shop? I'd like to go to the gift shop of Skinwalker Ranch, please.
Oh.
Purchase a little Skinwalker.
Have your own personal pocket Skinwalker. Jesus Christ, I don't want that.
One time, a friend of mine, Renee, he was having a baby shower. We live in Texas, so it's a little bit close to the border, like somewhere around Eagle Pass area. And a friend of ours owns a ranch out there. Before you get into his land, you make a right onto a long dirt road, and you just keep on driving. Because, like, once you get to his, like, where he sends you the GPS and all that, it takes about maybe 40 minutes till you get to his actual ranch. Yeah, so you get the first gate, and then you drive for maybe 25 minutes, and there's another gate, and that one you have to get off and open. Then you, yeah.
So he like rich.
Yeah, he got money. So once you get past the first gate, you have to drive another like 10 or so minutes, and then you get to the second gate, and then you open and close that one, then you're off to his ranch. So on the way back, I was trying to leave before the sunset because it gets. I figured it was gonna get pretty dark since there's no like. There's nothing out there.
I've been out in the middle of fucking Texas at night, and it is fucking terrifying because there is no lights anywhere on like farm roads and shit like that.
Nothing.
So I just keep on. I'm driving, and then finally, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it before the sun goes down. So I'm trying to drive a little faster. I finally get to the first gate where you have to open. And I remember in reading all these skinwalker stories that when a skinwalker is near, all the animals and just the world itself just goes silent. And so I noticed that it got really quiet, but I didn't really snap to it. So I opened the gate, walked back to my truck, drive through, close the gate. Then I'm off to the second gate. And that's when, as I'm driving to the second gate, I notice, it's really fucking quiet. There's no birds, there's nothing. You can't hear anything. It just
not even any bugs or nothing.
It sounded weird, yeah.
Definitely a predator somewhere.
Yeah.
Least.
So I get to the second gate, and that's when I was just like, fuck it, let's just open it. Drive through, close it. Then the sun gets dark, but there's still some light. Still no sound. And then finally, I made it out of there. So I didn't see no skinwalker, but still, it scared the shit out of me. What if I was near one, man? What if I was near one?
Definitely, I don't envy people that live out in the middle of nowhere.
Scary, guys.
We at least had a neighbor.
That's true.
We got neighbors. We're not like 45 minutes away from the nearest people.
So since we're into the Skinwalker mood, you mind if I read a quick story? It's
Yeah,
like really quick.
Here.
Okay.
All right.
So this one, guys, is called the North Carolina Incident.
Scary.
Yeah. This happened to me in January of 2019 in western North Carolina, around the town of Silva. I was participating in a week-long program to get certified as a first responder for wilderness first aid and rescue. I'm studying to become a forester, and it is important to know how to keep people alive in the woods when things go wrong. There are 2 primary locations in the complex, a classroom with small bathrooms and a kitchen where we spent most of the day in class and ate meals, and a group of 1-room cabins on top of a steep hill directly north of the classroom where we would sleep. An important thing to note about the cabins is the heating system. Each cabin has a small but powerful radiator that makes the cabin feel like a sauna if left on for too long. Since it was January in the Appalachians, it was pretty chilly outside at night, so the heat was needed. In order to strike a balance between boiling in our beds and getting hypothermia, we will turn on the radiator and leave a window open so that the warm and cold air could circulate and create a reasonable temperature. Don't get at me about the waste of power. I didn't like it either. The radiator and the open window were at the front of the cabin next to the door, and my bed was directly across from the window. The incident happened on the 5th day of my time there, a Thursday. My boyfriend and I, who was enrolled in the program with me, had settled down for the night in the cabin we shared with one other person. We had gone to sleep as normal and were sleeping soundly on 2 bunks that we had pushed together so we could sleep next to each other. Sometime during the night, I was woken up by some shuffling on the side of the room near the window. I heard my boyfriend say in a complaining voice, "Can we close this window?" I wake up feeling frozen. I woke up more and sat up in bed groggily, about to answer him, when I heard another voice say, "If we close the window, it'll get too hot and we'll wake up sweaty." I snapped awake and froze when where I was sitting. The voice then had responded, was my voice. There's something very strange and wrong in hearing your voice repeated back at you in the dark. I looked down next to me where I saw my boyfriend sleeping soundly. At this point, a mortal dread had a tight grip on my chest, and I forced myself not to move or even blink. I was focused intently on the place near the window, fearfully anticipating more of my own words. I heard more shuffling outside the window, and my same words were repeated. "If we close the window, it'll get too hot and we'll wake up sweaty." Followed quickly by my boyfriend's voice again. "Can we close the window?" I wake up feeling frozen. Towards the end of the last repetition of my boyfriend's words, there seemed to be an unevenness in the enunciation, like raising and lowering the pitch slightly. I remained frozen in my bed, feeling my hand fall asleep in my propped-up position. I sat there for what felt like 15 or 20 minutes, listening to whatever it was shuffle around in front of our window. Separated me by my some odd 10 feet in window mesh. Eventually, the shuffling became more frequent, and a weird mumbling sound came from outside the window, with no real words being said, or none that I could make out. This particular behavior didn't last before the shuffling sound moved to the left of the window to the door, where a scratching sound began to manifest. As the sound moved, I saw the silhouette of a medium height, about 5'6", figure that moved in an uncanny way, like when a baby animal tries to walk for the first time, but isn't quite strong enough to stand up correctly. It sounded like someone was scraping some dry sticks across the wood of the door, not aggressively, but kind of like an impatient dog asking to be let in. This scratching slowly moved around the cabin, stopping when it reached the wall that I was closest to. My ears were strained to hear anything that might indicate further action, but all I could hear were footsteps on dry leaves. The footsteps eventually moved away from the cabin and down the other side of the hill and didn't return for the rest of the night. I stayed unmoving from my position for at least another half an hour before my body readjusted itself slightly, letting blood flow back into my asleep limbs. I was wide awake until then my boyfriend and other roommates' alarms went off sometime before dawn to get ready for the day, which felt like maybe 2 hours, but I couldn't be certain because I didn't have a clock. My boyfriend wasn't surprised that I was awake before him, as I am typically a late sleeper, but I was just told him that his alarm woke me and tried to act somewhat normally. We got up and got ready for our day, but I refused to leave the cabin until the sun began to peek over the mountains. For the rest of the week, I was on edge and felt like there were eyes on me whenever it was relatively dark out. Though I'm not sure how much of there was raw paranoia, in the day following the incident and the night, I had realized the lines were repeated to me by the voice were a part of a conversation that me and my boyfriend had earlier on in the week. And I came to the conclusion that whatever it was had been outside our cabin and heard us talking. This scared me a great deal, as I also realized that it had likely been lurking there in the following nights as well without us realizing it might do so again for our remaining nights. Though it ended up not coming back, I waited to tell my boyfriend about this until we had left the program because he scares easy and was already a little wary of walking in the woods at night up to the cabins. Should be noted that I know this to not be a sleep paralysis experience, as I've had them before. They were nothing like this, not to mention that I was able to move. I am posting this here as also a means of asking for advice in addition to get it off my chest, as this winter I have to return to the same location and renew my certification. Expires 2 years after acquisition, and I want to know as much as I can so I can hopefully avoid another encounter. I know the entity for which this board is named is pinned on a lot of strange encounters, but I don't have a better idea of what it could be. If there is a similar entity that exists in my area, I'd be glad to hear about it and what I can do, if anything, to avoid it. Bitch, run.
Girl, don't go back.
Don't go back.
Do not.
That's fucking terrifying.
So yeah, that shit was scary. Well,
Spooked.
yeah,
Spooky.
it's spooky.
Can you imagine? We were on a vacation somewhere.
And like the Bahamas,
happened.
and like a Skinwalker came out in the Bahamas. He had like
And we're here.
shorts.
Why do I
And we
need to
hear-
imagine it on vacation? I can just imagine it happening in our own backyard.
And we're just like,
This is true. You do live out in well, it looks like the sticks, sort of.
Yeah.
It's like the little dip.
Sticks adjacent.
yeah.
Well, guys, that concludes our episode, our third episode, actually.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for getting spooky with us.
Thanks for getting your spooks off with us.
Your spooks off. All right, bye, guys.
Bye, guys.